based in Pittsburgh, but has sites in Pittsburgh.
I saw
I
have no desire to go to Houston, Texas for I'm good.
This is the one where it's like, because
All right, happy Thursday. How's everyone doing? We just got an announcement about from the Pitt Police about Barco Law. If anything like that comes up in the future during or like right before class time, feel free to just follow the police instructions. You don't have to be here if the police are telling you not to be. So just for future, just keep that in mind. I got a couple of emails about that. That's the broad answer. Take care of your safety first, and then we will do class secondary. How's everyone doing? You loving the first week? No? It's always, for me, on this side of the room, it's always pretty exciting. I love the first week, getting to know people, but definitely there's like more going on than normal. So if you're feeling that, that's the experience of week one. So what we're doing today, we're just getting started with working with data. Our expectations are pretty low for today in terms of like high level. We're going to be doing a lot of the practical stuff today, just getting set up in Excel and using notebooks. So we're going to start with sort of why we do some of these things first, and then by the end of class today, we will hopefully have made our way to looking at the survey data that we collected last class to get a general sense of what the classroom looks like, just using the information we've collected. So that's where we're going. A couple of housekeeping things at the top here. I posted the homework, which is due on Friday, so that's tomorrow. So you should have access to it. You can find that here. This should not take you more than a few minutes. This is really just a couple of simple questions based on what we're doing today in class. This is a quick turnaround. Like I mentioned last class, if the turnaround ever feels too quick for you to complete with your full rigor, send me an email and you will get an extension, no questions asked, till Monday. So I don't want the turnaround to ever feel like a burden for you, but I also want to give you some incentive to do it before the weekend so that you can have some of your weekend more free. So that's why we're doing a due date on Friday, but I never want the due date to feel like too much pressure for you. So this should take you about 10 minutes. These are just going to be multiple choice questions on Gradescope. You've all been added to the Gradescope page on Canvas, or on Gradescope. So you can just go to Canvas, and there should be a link there, and you just click on it and open it up in Gradescope. Anyone not feel comfortable with Gradescope? Or how many of you have used Gradescope before? I think almost everyone. If you haven't and it's not clear what's going on, send me an email and I can just walk you through it. Or we can talk about it after class. Okay, so this is based on the survey, and you can find the survey data here. So you should be able to download it and look at the survey data. So this will help you answer the questions in the homework. And like I mentioned, it's just multiple choice this week. Really don't spend more than 10 minutes on it. If you're losing your weekend because of this homework, I think you're doing it wrong. All right, so that's the housekeeping. We have homework. We're doing the first exercise today. And then next week we'll pick up with talking about visualizations. So that'll be Tuesday next week. Okay, any questions before we get in? Y'all feeling good? The correct answer is yes. Okay, so at a high level, what we're about to start doing is working with data summaries. To understand a data set, which is really the ground truth of what we do in science, or at least a lot of areas of science. To understand a data set, it's much easier when we have visualizations. This is just like stock footage, stock images of some nice visualizations. And what we're going to be doing this semester, especially here at the beginning, is talking about ways of understanding our data. As you'll see, the best way of visualizing our data depends on what the variable type is that we're working with. So we match the visualization to the variable type. What we're doing today is just talking about the different variable types and trying to identify them before we start trying to summarize them. So that's where we're going. You can see a lot of bad visualizations because of a mismatch between the variable type and the tool that we're using. So we'll just talk a bit about the dimensions of data. We're going to talk about, we're going to work through these different dimensions of data over the next couple of weeks. The first one, the one we're starting with today, is variable type. And we can generally break variables into two types. One is categorical data. So these are, I'll give you some examples in a second. But these are, it's like data that can be, as the name suggests, broken into categories. And then the second type is data that can be represented with a number. And there's not actually, like we talk about these different types, but there's a bit of fuzziness in some cases about what is classified as a categorical variable and what's classified as a numerical variable. But we're going to talk through some ways of trying to distinguish these things. So variable type is the first one we'll talk about. In probably next week, we'll talk about data structures. So this is not just what's contained in the variable, but how the individual rows are connected to each other. So sometimes you just go out into the world and you ask a bunch of people a certain thing, a certain question, and you record their answers. This is what we call cross-sectional. I'm looking out into the world and I'm observing multiple people at the same time on the same dimension. So this would be cross-sectional data. And when we get to data structures, we'll talk more about what that looks like. And then we have time series, which is, as you'd expect, just repeated measures through time. So we like, for example, we can measure GDP, just a sequence of GDP measures through time. And then you can, you've all seen those like line plots of GDP with time on the horizontal axis. That's time series data. And we will come to that in a little bit. And we'll particularly talk about this in part 2. And then panel data is a little more complicated. It's when we have repeated observations, so multiple time periods, but we also have multiple time periods across many individuals. So it's almost like we're combining cross-sectional data and time series data into one data structure. So I'll give you an example of this and some nice visualizations a bit later, but it's essentially repeated observations within an individual, but then we have many individuals in our data set. It's the most complicated data structure. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it this semester. I wrote my dissertation using panel data. It's really powerful. There are a lot of reasons we love it. But it's a bit more complicated, and I'll show you why. And then we also have the number of variables. Who put these slides together? Why is this so low? And what we're spending part 1 talking about is univariate data. So it's simply thinking about data sets that have one variable. But then in part 2, we'll start expanding into bivariate data. So we'll talk about when we have multiple columns. And we're going to do about a bit of this in part 1. But we're going to spend the bulk of part 2 talking about bivariate data. And then bivariate data and multivariate data, I just included these 2 bullet points. Maybe I should get rid of this one so it's not so low on the screen. Bivariate data and multivariate data are very similar in the way we approach them. But this is just a way of classifying the number of variables that we have in our data. If you can count, you can find the number of variables in your data set. Okay, so nice. This is just an overview of how we generally kind of classify things. So let's talk about some examples here. Within categorical variables, we have a couple of subcategories. Categorical variables are essentially just data that's best recorded as a category. So a binary categorical variable really just has two categories that you can list. So in this classroom, are you an economics major? Yes or no? In the survey, I didn't ask this question. I asked, what's your primary major? And that's not a binary categorical variable. Although, as we'll see, it is a categorical variable. A binary categorical variable is something that we can record as like a yes or no answer. Are you human? Well, I think I am. At least that's what I'm told. Which is so that's also a categorical variable, binary categorical variable. Data that's recorded best as categories, and there are two of them. Nominal categorical variables are categories that are not able to be ranked. So blood types. How many of you know your blood type? I don't, actually. Okay. Did I tell you I had a child? We have documentation of her blood type, but I don't know mine. So this is not binary categorical data because there are more than two blood types. But you can't really order blood types, right? There isn't like a ranking of them. Colors are kind of the same way. So your favorite color, there's a correct answer. So there's definitely the best one, the best favorite color, and that's blue. Orange is at the bottom. So this is nominal categorical variables. So this is data that can't be ordered. And we'll talk about some examples of this in a second. Actually working with these things. And then ordinal categorical variables. So sometimes data is best recorded as a categorical variable, but it does have an order to it. It's just the scale isn't obvious. So there's not a meaningful scale. So education levels, so we can order your education level in general. And then we can also order like how strongly you agree with something. And then size categories. These are all things that, I guess size categories, you might be able to measure the sizes, right, with a meaningful scale. But for most of these things, there isn't a fundamentally meaningful scale with the categories. And yet, this data is best recorded as categories. All right, so we've done the classification stuff for categorical variables. Any questions about this? Any quibbles? Questions? Quandaries? Quackery? Great. So that's all sort of the way we classify categorical variables. Numerical variables, there are some philosophical issues if you dig down too deeply into this stuff. Numerical variables are just essentially variables that are stored as best as numbers. So, one of the ways we can store numbers is just with discrete numbers, right? So if I'm counting the number of children in a household, you just go through and you count the number of children. It's usually stored as an integer. So this is like 1 through, I don't know, I think some families have had more than 10 children. So, a number as an integer. So my family has one child at this point. We store them as integers. We typically don't store number of children as fractions. Like it's really just integers, right? Number of siblings. These are things that are stored as integers. And the way we think about this as countable numbers with meaningful intervals, right? The difference between one child and two children is meaningful. It's 1. And it's the same interval between 2 children and 3 children, right? So the interval matters when we talk about numerical variables. It's a big part of what defines them, is that the intervals are meaningful. And then we also have continuous variables. So really, these are things that we just measure on the real number line. So household income and US GDP, these are classic things that we measure, which we think of as continuous variables. At base, we can't really measure GDP at a more fine-grained level than the penny. So a penny, in some sense, is the atom of measurement for US currency. And so in some ways, like, we could think of US GDP as a discrete numerical variable if we were measuring GDP in terms of pennies. So when I say that there's not a big philosophical distinction between discrete and continuous numerical variables, that's kind of what I mean. It's like if we measure GDP in terms of dollars or in pennies, fundamentally it is counting. So we're not going to make a big fuss about the distinction between discrete and continuous numerical variables, but I think it's just worth mentioning on day one. Any questions here? We like classifying things for some reason, and so that's what we do. All right, so nice. So I'm promising to you that the variable type matters in the way that we summarize it. And you might already start to see some of the reasons for that.